The race is on, and while his colleagues were putting their feet up and enjoying a weekend without racing, Max Verstappen was taking part in one of the most demanding 24-hour events in the world. But how did he get on? What impact did he have on the race? And what does this tell us about his future? I'm Edd Straw, and joining me from the Nurburgring is Josh Suttill. Well, Josh, you've done a 24-hour race, so how fit are you for podcasting? That's the big question. Do you have much sleep?
No, I did go for a sleep strategy. Some people went all the way through, but I learnt my lesson from before. I did that at Le Mans before and would not recommend it to anyone. So this time I had 2 hours, about 3 a.m, and didn't actually miss too much. So it was actually well timed. So I was quite proud of my strategy. And yeah, feeling really great now.
Yeah, I'm a great believer in that strategy. I always, when covering 24-hour races, one away, even if you just had like an hour's sleep, get up, have a shower, break up, create a new day. That's actually a really important thing to do. And you have made it to the end of the race successfully, unlike the number 3 Mercedes of Max Verstappen, Daniel Ricciardo, Jules Gounon and Lucas Auer that was leading and in a commanding position until problems struck just sort of within the 4-hour to go mark, wasn't it, Josh? So was victory guaranteed, and what went wrong?
Well, I think victory is never guaranteed here, and I think that's what we've learned throughout the 24 hours. I did say before the race, actually, that to me it just felt like it wasn't going to happen for Team Verstappen, because I had no doubt that they had all the performance necessary, and I think they proved that before the event, during the event. They'll prove it after the event again, I'm sure. But there's just so much that can go wrong here. There are so many hurdles. So many of the big hitters were lost in the first few hours, and you just were almost just waiting for something to happen to one of the 2 Mercedes cars. And yeah, it just happened to be the Verstappen car. Obviously, Daniel Ricciardo was at the wheel. He had a message, or the team got a message basically saying something wrong with the ABS. He sort of tried to manage it and then had a lot of vibrations aboard the Mercedes to where it was quite obvious that something was wrong. He really, really tried to get it around, and I guess just willing to keep it in the lead, or at least keep it in second, because of course they had quite a sizable advantage behind them. So there was a bit of a safety net there, but it turned out to be quite a major problem. Ricciardo brought it in only on the 3rd lap of his stint. The team had a look at it, looked like a fairly major drive shaft issue, nothing that could be easily fixed. So yeah, that was pretty much effectively the end of their race. They did get back out there just for the last couple of laps to kind of tick it off, to sort of say they basically finished it. But I think they were about 21 laps down and in 38th. So yeah, not much to celebrate, unfortunately, with the end result. I guess from what I've heard, it sounds like the investigations will carry on to exactly what caused it. But it seems like, to be honest, just one of those things where one of the toughest circuits in the world has taken its toll on a car after such a long time out there.
And what about the reaction of the team? How gutted were they, particularly some of his teammates, actually, because although this is Max Verstappen's first attempt, all of those 3 with him have varying numbers of Nurburgring 24 hours outings. I don't think any of them have won it before. So particularly Daniel Ricciardo, who has done it quite a few times, probably thought the victory was within his grasp.
If anything, it might even mean more to them than it does to Verstappen. Don't get me wrong, Verstappen absolutely wants to win, and he came here to win. He didn't come here just for a distraction from F1 and to have a good time. He very much came here to win. But yeah, for those other drivers, they put so much into it as well. Like you say, we saw the quite visceral reaction from Ricciardo, because yeah, they'd done everything right. Just to put yourself in the shoes of those 3 other drivers this weekend. You're driving and sharing a car with the best driver in the world, and any little thing that you do wrong, or if you're not quite matching up to Verstappen, you'll get a tirade of focus on social media and across everything. People will be asking questions of you, and yeah, like you say, they're comparing you to Max Verstappen, to the best driver in the world. And I think that all 3 of them put in a really, really good account of themselves. And I think, to be honest, they were fairly proud of what they'd done. I think they'd realised that it was a really tough task, and it wasn't as if one of them had tripped over a back marker, or one of them had made a very obvious mistake. It just seemed like one of those things. So I think that, in a way, makes it easy to accept. Never nice to lose a victory, but at least I think, as far as all 4 of them are concerned, they know that they didn't do anything wrong. It was simply just a look of the Nordschleifer gods said, not this year for the Team Verstappen car.
And how about Max? Has he spoken of his disappointment, or is it just as you'd expect from him, a kind of, well, that's racing?
Yeah, he's been keeping a very low profile. Obviously, part of the appeal of going to the Nurburgring Nordschleife is that he doesn't have all these media commitments. He doesn't have to come and speak to the media after every session like he does in Formula One. I think he enjoys that. He still did a couple of interviews, though, and I spoke to a couple of people within the team, just to ask how he reacted. And they just said he reacted, the same way he has done throughout this whole process, just with a great degree of professionalism and a great deal of leadership as well. I think he's really kind of taken on that role. Obviously, it is the Team Verstappen car, and he seems to have taken on that role. He supported his teammates a lot. And I think he knows that, he's not going to go around making a big fuss of it, because at the end of the day, he needs to lead by example. And his message apparently was very, very clear, is that they are going to be back. They're going to be back at this race, and next time it will be different, because they know that they did lots and lots of things right. They just need to come back and get revenge. And he was, like I say, very supportive of his teammates as well. It's a very close group. And I think he handled it very, very well.
And it was, of course, the sister Mercedes that won Winward Racing, Maranello, Lucas Stoltz, Fabian Schiller and Maxime Martin, that the Verstappen car was battling with for quite a substantial part of the race. So the team still won, even though obviously that car's the Ravenel badged one, and then there's the Verstappen.
Very much one team, though. Definitely one team. That's kind of what I found, is that very much just under one roof. They help each other a lot. They learn a lot. Obviously, they did. It was a bit strange, wasn't it? Because we were talking about this kind of as the race was happening, kind of how, if it was managed or not, because there were sort of elements of looking like they were kind of doing a bit of formation flying. But then at other points, you'd literally get Maranello and Max Verstappen sort of clashing on the straight, which looked completely opposite of formation flying. So tried to get to the bottom of that, and it seemed like a bit of a mix. I think Mercedes said that they wanted to put on a bit of a show and make sure that it wasn't too controlled. And I think we did see that for a little bit. I think once that incident happened, then there was a bit of a talking of, because that was around sort of, I don't know, 1, 2 a.m. sort of, let's be a bit more sensible and wait until it's kind of sunlight, and maybe then we can have a fight it out in the last few hours, because they had such a commanding lead. If we were sat here on Sunday evening and Mercedes hadn't ended its 10-year Nurburgring 24 hours drought, then something had gone seriously wrong. And it has, mission accomplished, even though I lost one car, it has done that. So, it was pretty well managed all the way through. But it had been really interesting to see if it had stayed in, if the number 3 car would have stayed in the race, what would have happened in those last few laps? Would it have been an all-out battle between the two of those, and how would it have been managed?
Yeah, and it was still pretty close at the point the number 3 car hit trouble. What was it, 40-odd seconds, something of that order? Can't remember the precise gap. But and around that track, that's not a huge amount, because, you catch a slow zone or a code 60 or whatever at the wrong time, and you can easily lose big chunks of time. So, very much the battle was still on. And we'll get on into a little bit more detail about the race in part 2. Well, let's talk through how the race was almost won by the number 3 car. Quite a lot going on early on, wasn't there, in terms of major contenders hitting trouble or having setbacks early on. It didn't actually take long for the two Mercedes to assert themselves, did it? But right from literally the very start of the race, the first lap, even before they'd left the Grand Prix track to go onto the Nordschleife, there were actually significant things impacting several cars.
The rate of self-implosion was quite remarkable, to be honest, from some of Verstappen's rivals. And it was one of those things where a lot of them were outside of the control as well. It just seemed to be an absolute storm of factors within the first few hours. You mentioned the opening lap. There was other Red Bull cars, obviously there, a Red Bull-backed team with 2 Lamborghinis, and they locked out the front row. And the Lamborghini was looking really, really quick suddenly in qualifying, and that would actually carry through into the race. And it looked like a car that could have won the race. But on the opening lap, you had one Lamborghini doing a jump start, and Mirko Bellotto, we heard from him, was not very happy about that after the race, sort of said that there was supposed to have been a strategy there, and obviously the sister car had other ideas and just kind of shot off. And then obviously he was then made contact with the Verstappen car, had a puncture, lost about 3 minutes, because essentially he had that contact at the first couple of turns. You've then got to do the whole Grand Prix circuit. He got to the end of the Grand Prix circuit, then his tyre exploded. He was able to peel into the pits, but once you go into the pits and change that tyre, you've then got to do a whole new loop of the Grand Prix circuit and then get going again. So it's a real massive time loss, because he had a puncture and he was able to start straight in the pits, which normally you think, okay, he's not going to lose too much time there. But uniquely here, obviously you had to do a whole Grand Prix loop. So it was major time loss there.
And that, of course, was the car that finished second, the Bortolotti car. So very, very much a serious contender and extremely rapid.
Yeah, we were watching the times. There was some really insane times. And I think, like I say, fully capable of winning. You had the 911 Porsche in the hands of Kevin Estre. came across some oil and went into the barriers backwards. Our Germanian, a Ford Mustang, went over the oil and went in forwards over the oil. So that was another couple of cars. You had Thierry Vermeulen, the son of Max Verstappen's manager, Raymond in the Ferrari, Kondo Racing, loads of success in Japan and a very good outfit, but one that was just completely wiped out by one moment, just a misjudgment around one of the Porsche Cayman GT4 cars. So that was another big contender out. And it was just, contender after contender. People remember maybe Christopher Hasse in the Audi, who Verstappen had a lot of good battles with in some of the NLS races before the 24-hour race. But his race was ended. Alexander Sims was driving and basically came across a suddenly slow-moving car, went straight into the back of it, and that was the end basically of the Audi's race. And that turned out to have just been a Marshall kind of missignaling, where one driver saw one thing at one post and then another was shown at the next post, which the officials kind of cleared up afterwards, but it's obviously no good when you've got a completely damaged Audi. So yeah, there was just absolute chaos. And then, like you said, Ed, it was suddenly this Mercedes 1-2 with just this ginormous advantage behind it. It was quite a weird feeling because it felt like that should be the end of the race, but suddenly there was still 17, 18 hours to go at that point.
Yeah, and of course, Verstappen didn't start the race. Juncker started the race in that car. He got in a little bit later, and he had quite a lively moment really early on, didn't he, Verstappen, when he actually found the wall?
Yeah, and this is one that he says he admits he just lost concentration. It was just a lapse in concentration and just basically drifted into the wall. That very easily could have been the end of the entire weekend for the number 3 car. It was quite uncharacteristic. It almost felt like he just took a little bit of warming up, with that mistake. He looked a little bit edgy as well once he first got the car. I think he was just feeling himself into what's obviously a very difficult circuit and a very long circuit. If you have one side to lap, that's 9 minutes or 8 minutes of your race already just to get your eye in. So we certainly had that scary moment, and I think that woke him up, because then the Max Verstappen we knew came alive. I mean, an absolutely supreme couple of back-to-back stints. If that Verstappen car had won the race, I think we'd be talking a lot more about this as just kind of a real defining couple of stints, and later on as well, which we'll come to. But yeah, these early ones were really, really impressive. There was a move on the grass around the outside. There was just really some nice opportunism. Just absolute textbook Max Verstappen. This is what the people paid to see. I mean, they put on a fantastic show for everyone here. Just really instinctive feel. But I think all the drivers watching were just really, really impressed, because he was out there, just looked like a computer game, looked like classic Max Verstappen. And then you remember this is the first time he's ever been here for a 24-hour race, and it just looked like he'd been driving here, every day of the week for over a year of the existence of time.
Yeah, perhaps you can give us a sense of how quick he was, in terms of, obviously he's right up there, but was he the quickest thing out there by a large margin? Which of course he wouldn't be, because there's a lot of very good drivers there. But how good was his performance?
Yeah, really good. I mean, obviously the reference you have is the other 3 drivers in that car, and then the other 4 obviously in the car that won. And you still need to do some more analysis, obviously, of course, after the race. We have all the full figures, but just from everything I've seen, it seems like Verstappen was the fastest driver there. There were periods where he'd get the car. I mean, when he got the car in that first couple of stints, he came out 10th, and he was in the lead when he handed the car back over. Every time he was handing the car back over, he was back in first. And then in the night was, I think, where we really saw how impressive he was. Before the race, he'd had one lap in the night in Thursday qualifying. It was really treacherous conditions. It was basically a bit of a box tick. Just go out there and, experience the nighttime conditions. No real kind of proper bedrock for something that's extremely difficult. The Nordschleife from the dark, it doesn't get more difficult than that. You can do it on the simulations, and Verstappen's very good at that. But even those are not going to properly prepare you for just a monumental challenge. And remember that, of course, there are lights around the Grand Prix circuit, but the rest of it is just kind of lit up by camping sites, your headlights, flashing phones, flashing cameras. So it's it's a real challenge. And Verstappen just absolutely, like a duck to water, just incredible in the dark. And yeah, he'd sort of have, I think at one stage, had something like a 2-second advantage, and he turned that into like a 30-second advantage. Just unreal kind of pace at a time when other people were maybe just trying to survive, and he was just building a gap every single time. So utterly impressive. And I know you said maybe there were faster people out there. I'm not sure. There's every chance that when people analyze everything, it could be that Max Verstappen was probably the fastest driver this weekend. because it was honestly just incredible pace. And the rate at which he was able to move through traffic, despite not being an endurance race expert in the real world, he's suddenly got he's always had that. So straight away from those early NLS races, we saw it straight away. His traffic management is just absolutely insane, and that gains him heaps and heaps of time over his rivals.
Yeah, and doing this against absolute specialists in this form of racing, very, very quick drivers in their own right. And there's loads of drivers in this race who, had things been a little bit different, had their careers gone differently, they could have made it to Formula One. They're very, very high level drivers. So to come in and do that is outstanding, but perhaps not so surprising given we know how good Verstappen is. What did you make of the incident between Verstappen and Maro Engel, which, as you said, led to them trying to cool off that battle? Side by side, Engel ended up on the grass at one stage. That was just classic Nurburgring stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It felt a bit unnecessary at that time and at the stage of the race, but yeah, it just felt like one of those things. It felt inevitable that was going to happen when you have the cars running so close together. I was quite surprised how close they ran with each other for so much of the night, because I was expecting stuff like that to happen a lot more. Or also like when the two Porsches, nearly had a moment in front of him as well. You were just kind of waiting for something to happen like that. So a bit unnecessary, but I mean, at the end of the day, they were able to race like that for 24 hours and not really trip over anyone in a major way. The closest he came to losing it was by himself. So I think he just about stayed over the lines there, I think.
Yeah, and this really was the story of the race for so much of it, wasn't it? The fact that it went on for a huge percentage of the race. It was going to be one of those two cars that won, and the number 3 car did have the advantage. But to come back to the kind of element of team orders, obviously Fabian Schiller talked about the fact they were sort of told to cool it off and hold station. Do you think that was a kind of logical move? And obviously I imagine somewhere there will be various theories people have got that they wanted Verstappen to win, but that's just racing pragmatism, isn't it?
And also he made the biggest difference when he got in the car. It was suddenly that he was in the lead because he was just delivering astronomical pace, and he got himself 30 seconds ahead to the point where, maybe it wouldn't have been a thing. But yeah, I think it was clever management because they had such a gap behind them, and so many of the other contenders had tripped over themselves. It would just be completely needless for them to have an incident and ruin it all together, because they were basically one team. So it just made sense. You can't go flat out for 24 hours just racing each other all the time, because it will just end in tears, really. And it's no one's fault. It's just so easy for someone to make a mistake. We saw it so many times. So someone understeers, has a lockup, and takes you both into the wall, and that's just the end of your race. And it's such a waste when they've done so well to get themselves into the position.
Yeah, and just for context, for those who weren't watching, there's 161 cars in this race, and yes, 41 of them they're in the Verstappen class, but there's a wide range of machinery, right down to the celebrated Dacia that lots of people on social media were getting excited about. So huge range of performance differences and different driver levels as well. So it's just a completely unique race in that regard. How disappointed are you that Verstappen didn't win it, though?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think ultimately you can go away today and you'll find so many different teams who had hard luck stories, and obviously Verstappen's the one that will take them as headlines, understandably, because it was so far into the race. I think that's what makes it heartbreaking. If it was earlier on, you could probably write it off amongst the others, but it was a fact that it felt like he sort of had that race won, but makes it disappointing. But this is endurance racing, this is there's no payout. They don't stop the race after 20 hours or when there's a clear winner. They stop it after 24 hours. So it's just one of those things that could have happened to anyone. The main thing is that he and the entire Verstappen team proved that they have what it takes to win this race. They don't actually have to win the race to kind of prove that. So I think, it's one of those things. It really could have happened to anyone. And it's a great story because then the next question is he going to come back and win it? And that just makes a much more interesting narrative, I think, going forward. And if he sort of won it first time out, kind of where do you go from there? I felt a bit that with like the Fernando Alonso thing as well when he went to Le Mans. I think it's a bit more interesting if there's a bit more of a longer wait for that first victory.
Yeah, it builds up a bit more myth around it, doesn't it? And obviously, yeah, these races, you need a little bit of luck. They need to choose you is often the phrase that's used for 24-hour races. So, yeah, I'm just delighted. It means I think he'd have been back anyway, but Verstappen will surely be back and in there fighting to win the race in the future. And it meant that you could be on site as well to cover it. And it's a fantastic race. And you did, while you're out there, do some extra content for the Race Members Club. Loads of, comments, trackside, you lost your car in a car park, all that kind of thing. So it's been fun to do that as well.
Yeah, definitely. There's no easy way to bring it up and sound like an idiot, but I did predict that Verstappen wasn't going to win the race in the Friday night video, just because I said there was just so much unpredictability. There's no way he's going to win it, and I was looking like an idiot until about 3.5 hours into the race. So yeah, I wasn't disappointed, Ed. I was actually very happy because it proved me right, and that's the most important thing to it. So if you want more spoilers for what's going to happen in races, then do join the members club, and you can get some 100% accurate predictions. So.
Yeah, but don't expect to be able to find your car in the right car park, because you're wandering in very much the wrong direction while recording that. But hit the link in the episode description or head to Patreon and search for the race or the Race Members Club to find out more. Let's look at the big picture now, Josh, because Max Verstappen's presence has brought huge attention to the Nurburgring. 24 hours, 352,000 was the official crowd figure, although quite how they come up with that, given how spread out everything is, I wouldn't be surprised if it's more than that. But how profound has his impact been?
Monumental. I came here on Wednesday afternoon. They have a launch event in one of the German towns near here. It was absolutely rammed. Max Verstappen wasn't there. Max Verstappen couldn't be there for security reasons, because he would just be mobbed by the hundreds of thousands of people who came here. It just was basically a shot in the arm for this event, and a brilliant shop window for it. I think so many people have realized what an amazing event it is through Verstappen. But I think hopefully they're going to stick around, even if Verstappen does or doesn't race in the future, because I think they've just seen a really, really amazing event. Yeah, the atmosphere has been absolutely incredible. I've honestly never seen a Thursday. I mean, I've been with you to many an F1 Thursday, and a Nurburgring 24-hour Thursday is just completely different. You know, the atmosphere is incredible. The access here is fantastic for fans. They can get all around the paddock. They can see, so much of it. They can really get close to the drivers and the cars and the garages. Obviously, it's somewhere like here, there's 4 or 5 cars per garage. So there's all sorts of unique things like that where people are just kind of stacked up. And yeah, just the atmosphere constantly has been great. And it hasn't it's not like it's just been a sea of the Orange Army or a sea of F1 merchandise wearing people. It's just been a sea of motorsport loving people. I think the main difference is if you go to a Formula One race, maybe within the sort of paddock area in particular, you maybe got 40-50% of people there sort of for the actual racing or for the motorsport. You come here and it's got to be about 99%. Like, nobody is coming here unless they're big into motorsport, love the sights and sounds of it. And you just get that. It's a proper time capsule. You'd love it, Ed. There's nobody wandering around with selfie sticks or people taking kind of all the commercial bits, or it's just a very pure kind of enjoyment and enthusiasm for racing, without everything that's probably been added within the last sort of 10-20 years, the all kind of everything around the periphery. It's just very much focused on racing. So it's quite a unique time capsule to how I remember motorsport being in like the 2000s. So it's an incredible experience.
Yeah, and it's fantastic to have a little bit of an extra boost for the growth of this race, which has grown over the years. What is this, the 54th running? And for a long time, it was kind of almost this super clubby event. And I don't mean that as a negative, because club racing is wonderful, but obviously, particularly with the GT3 revolution, it's just become more and more important, more and more manufacturers. And I haven't been to the race for quite a long time, so it was a bit more, even more rough and ready the last time I went. But it's great to have that Verstappen factor. And what I really like is, I just think it's great when you have the star power of somebody like that just shining a light. It attracts attention, but also just tells people this is a race and it's full of very, very high quality drivers. So that the drivers in those crews that were fighting up at the front are very, very high level. Even if some of them you haven't heard of, they are seriously quick racing drivers. And I like the fact that Verstappen brings that attention. And also Verstappen himself brings, I think, that great respect. That he doesn't see them as kind of lesser. He sees them as fellow racing drivers. And some of them were clearly getting a kick out of sharing the track with him, because he's an all-time great.
Yeah, I mean, he goes up and talks to them like anybody would at a karting event or a club event. It's no different to that. It's just, he is an enthusiast in heart and heart, and he comes here and he sees that in everyone. It's just a place built for Verstappen. Like if you had to build an ideal place, it would be this. So yeah, it's just a perfect fit, and all the drivers appreciate it. It's made a more household name of, like I say, Christopher Hasser and other people who have been plugging away at a professional career for so long and like putting in incredible drives at some of the best circuits in the world, year after year after year, and no one sort of gives them much recognition. But through Verstappen, it has given a whole new recognition, and I think that they enjoy that. It's not like they particularly want the fame. Some of them, I think, shy away from it a little bit. But it's just a nice boost for them to get a bit more of a platform and just a bit more enthusiasm. Because like I say, like you said, it's one of those crowd figures where it does actually feel like there has been over 300,000 people here, because it has just been packed completely on the roads and everywhere around here. So it's a one time I'm probably willing to believe a slightly interesting crowd figure, just because there's been so many people here. And like I say, a lot of that is down to Verstappen, but a lot of it is just pure enthusiasm. It's like a club racing event on steroids. It's like a small scale motorsport event that just happens to have 300,000 people watching it.
And I do wonder how many of his F1 rivals have been looking on enviously, because many, if not all of them, won't be able to do stuff like this because usually your contracts don't allow you to. And obviously, because Verstappen has got so much kind of power and Red Bull want to hang on to him, he's got that level of flexibility, whether that's codified in his contract or it's just pragmatic to give him that permission. It's a bit like when Alonso did the Indy 500 back in 2017. He missed the Monaco Grand Prix for that. He had to miss a whole race. But again, it was because they wanted to keep him happy when things weren't going that well. But all those other drivers must just be looking on so enviously at what he's been able to do, because this is the ultimate driving challenge, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. And like you said, I think that's important, because then you can't just go, well, why isn't everyone else doing it? Because Verstappen is in a completely unique situation. I can't really think of too many other drivers now who would have that flexibility to do it. So he's in that position. He's using it very well. I hope it inspires more crossovers, because I think everybody wins when that happens. Formula One is enriched. Here is definitely enriched. Well, yeah, I hope that. I don't know. Here is definitely enriched, and this whole GT world is enriched. I do wonder about the impact on Formula One, whether it has a positive or negative effect. I think someone like Verstappen is obviously such a popular figure, and people look to him for a viewpoint. I wonder if there is an element of, I wonder how F1 will view this, him going here and having such a great time, and then going back to F1 and not having as nice a time. I wonder how they'll view that, because it should be a celebration for all of motorsport, but I wonder if there is an element of kind of, we wish Verstappen would enjoy our product as much as he's enjoying the Nordschleife and GT racing.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it depends what your perspective is. There will be a little bit of concern, but the bottom line is F1 doesn't or should not stand apart. Yes, as its own sporting business, it's one entity, but the whole sport's motorsport, isn't it? So I always think it's just for the benefit of everyone. If there's just a little bit more attention on other corners that aren't looked at or paid attention to quite as much as they should have done, it's been great to see so many people enjoying it. And I don't think it affects Formula One. Formula One is still Formula One ultimately. And, that it will still be Verstappen's legend is built upon that. But the Nurburgring 24 hours attempt and maybe future success, if he goes back and can win in the future, no guarantee he will win, even if he does return, because as this year showed, it's very difficult to do. But it just all adds to that legend, doesn't it? I mean, it does whet the appetite for me to see Verstappen in some other things as well. Now, it's difficult with F1 with so many races, so much time, to find the time, even when you've got the freedom to do it. But you could see him trying to do, I don't know, Daytona 24 hours, something like that, that's conveniently located at the start of the year. And then when he's not doing Formula One, obviously Le Mans is the obvious one. And that's just the thing I like to see, just his joy in taking on these challenges. And I think, say what you want about Max Verstappen, he's got some critics about the way he races or whatever, but his pure just spirit for driving and enthusiasm and just desire to be at the heart of the car competing, you absolutely can't question it.
Yeah, but one important question for me is, who is he going to be doing it with? And that's kind of started to come up a little bit here, because, of course, at the moment he drives for Red Bull in Formula One. They have a partnership with Ford. Ford is also here right now with some pretty good Mustangs, actually, who had quite good pace. Like I said, mine, slipped on the oil and went off. But actually, like the Mustangs seem to be pretty good. I think Ford would obviously love Verstappen to be driving one of those. And the same, obviously, with Le Mans, kind of which program would he go for? Daytona, the same thing. So it's an interesting thing because just like how everyone chases their signature in Formula One, everybody will want his signature here because Mercedes, I think, have pulled off quite the coup in getting him into one of their cars for this event because it's been quite a little boost, I think, for them as a whole, because yes, they haven't got him in Formula One, but they've got him here, and a lot of the coverage has been around he's driving a Mercedes. It's a great advert for the car. Obviously, it's still managed to go and win the race as well. So I'm really interested to see where that goes as well, and kind of especially with Ford, obviously, like I say, being a Red Bull partner, where is he going to go for these next ones? Because he's not committed to carrying on with Mercedes. So I think it's still going to be a bit of a fight to kind of see where he goes next.
Yeah, and it's always worth remembering the reality that no matter what flexibility the driver has, there's always commercial considerations and commercial clashes. Now, some might think Red Bull and Mercedes is a clash because of F1, but it's not, because Red Bull's not selling against Mercedes, if you like, whereas he couldn't go and race, let's say, a monster car somewhere because that's a proper Red Bull commercial rival. So there's a lot of complications when it comes to that. But I think it's great to see drivers doing this. It's a bit of a throwback to times when drivers either wanted to or had to because they needed to raise extra income, ultimately, compete in all sorts of things. And I think everybody enjoys seeing that. And I think it's a reminder that even though there's, in areas, a bit of polarization between fans of different categories, it is all the same sport. So I've really enjoyed seeing him race at the Nurburgring. And in a way, perhaps it's for the best he didn't win first time out, not through not wanting him to win, but it just shows that no matter who you are, a race like this is incredibly difficult to triumph in. And let's hope he comes back for more. But anyway, thank you, Josh, for joining us and pushing through the inevitable tiredness and give us a little bit of insight about how Verstappen got on your trip to the Nurburgring 24 hours. We'll be back focused on more conventional F1 next as we are looking ahead to the Canadian Grand Prix. And we'll be talking Red Bull and a bit more Max Verstappen in our next episode as well. So join us then for everything you need to know from the world of Formula One.